20th of November 1942. The Northern Sector. In the northwest, 5th Tank Army's advance resumed, but proved once again to be unsettled. Caught in the heavy fighting in the Peshani area against the 22nd Panzer Division, the 1st Tank Corps was slowly disengaging and leaving the sector to the 8th Cavalry Corps. On the left flank, the 26th Tank Corps' 157th Tank Brigade captured Perelazovsky, seizing the headquarters of the 5th Romanian Corps along with a considerable amount of material in the process. The 19th Tank Brigade deflected a counterattack attempt by the 1st Romanian Armoured Division from the Zaritsa River. The rear echelon and supply column of the latter was taken by surprise due to the Red Army's dramatic advance. Its fuel and ammunition trucks were simply incorporated into the Soviet brigades, their Romanian drivers just turning back in the opposite direction, flanked by Russian soldiers. Meanwhile, the 21st Army was consolidating and expanding its offensive toward Kutluk and the Krepkaya rivers. In the 65th Army sector, where the main fighting was occurring around the heavily fortified village of Horakovsky, a breakthrough was finally obtained, enabling the 91st Tank Brigade to make a deep raid into the rear of the German 11th Corps, reaching as far as the Golubaya River by day's end. Surrounded by the 5th Tank Army on one side and the 21st Army on the other, the main body of the 3rd Romanian Army was becoming isolated in the region of Rapopenskaya, where General Laskar took control of the remnants of the 4th and 5th Corps, whilst the neighbouring 1st Armoured Division was still trying to break free and link with the 22nd Panzer Division. On the western side of the penetration, the remaining Romanian 1st and 2nd Corps were slowly but surely pushed back to the Chur River line and eventually subordinated to the German 17th Corps coming from beyond the Italian 8th Army, whilst the 48th Panzer Corps, already damaged and overpowered, was slowly retreating in the same direction without being allowed to fully disengage from the fighting. Reinforcements began to arrive from 6th Army's front in a frenetic attempt to strengthen its rear and, coincidentally, the new western flank of Paulus's entire group of forces. Elements of both 14th and 24th Panzer Divisions, followed by anti-tank and assault gun battalions, were deployed around Verkhnebuzhinovka, while separate regiments from the 44th and 384th Infantry Divisions were also dispatched to the threatened sector. The task of setting up a whole new line of defence in the open region south of Strecker's endangered front was allocated to the 14th Panzer Corps, with the mobile elements of the 14th, 24th and 16th Panzer Divisions along with the 3rd Motorised Division and composite detachments from rear service units. However, severely mauled as a result of months of fighting in Stalingrad, these armoured groups had not only insufficient strength, but were also bound to arrive too late on the ground, where the Soviet Mobile Corps had already torn enormous gaps and were about to achieve their objectives. Faced with such a deteriorating situation, the OKH decided to create Army Group Don with Field Marshal von Manstein as Commander-in-Chief, to control this part of the front, including the 2 German and 2 Romanian armies. At the same time, Hitler consulted with heads of the Luftwaffe about the possibility for supplying the 6th Army by air if it happened to be surrounded. Though categorically refuted by 4th Luftwaffe's commanders, it was decided at GHQ level that a temporary air bridge was feasible, for none even considered the eventuality of a durable encirclement. The Southern Sector. Just as was the case for the northern offensive the day before, fog and snowfalls laid their curtain across the Stalingrad Front's attacking sector, prompting Yeremenko to ask the Stavka for a delay in the beginning of the 57th and 64th Army's artillery preparations. Benefiting from better weather conditions over its area, the 51st Army began as planned at 0730 hours, but there again almost no aircraft could take off and artillery fire correction was greatly hindered. At 0830 hours, attacking on the northern flank, the 15th Guards Rifle Division quickly dispersed the weak Romanian defences and advanced over 10 kilometres. On the southern flank, Soviet infantry with supporting tanks also easily overcame the Romanian positions, enabling the army's mobile formations to be introduced into the breach. However, the 4th Mechanized Corps experienced initial difficulties entering the battlefield, mainly due to the congestion and scarcity of roads, along with not fully cleared minefields. The induced delay prompted Khrushchev to come in person to one of the brigade's headquarters and press its commander to move on. Volsky's corps finally began its exploitation at 1300 hours and reached Plodovitoye by 2200 hours, where heavy fighting developed. Meanwhile, the 59th and 60th Brigades were ordered to proceed by night to Abganarova and Tinguta respectively, which they seized by dawn the next day. The armoured brigade's overall advance was then close to 50 kilometres. They were followed by the motorised infantry and 4th Cavalry Corps, which were to protect their left flank. Delayed by the fog, the 57th Army began its assault at 11:15 hours. Its infantry was reinforced with over 80 tanks, including some belonging to the Army's mobile force, and achieved a quick and decisive breakthrough in the Romanian lines. Yet there too, the main attack force could not be introduced as planned. With 1/3 of its troops still on the other side of the Volga, part of its armour and most of its vehicles supporting the advance of the Army's rifle divisions, the 13th Mechanized Corps joined the assault late in the day and in a diminished state. Only 80 tanks out of 170 entered the penetration on the first day, with the infantry lagging behind on foot instead of using over 2,000 trucks as initially expected. Furthermore, due to the poor visibility in the gathering darkness and the lack of terrain features for orientation, part of these forces either headed into minefields or wandered off their assigned course. As a result, the Corps' columns stretched out and its lead elements were just approaching Naraman by nightfall, when they came under heavy fire from the German 29th Motorised Division. This unit, with 60 tanks and a respectable amount of motorised infantry, was actually deployed for a field exercise when ordered to move against the advancing Soviet formations. The fight which ensued slowed Tanashishkin's advance even more, the Panzer Grenadiers damaging 2 tank brigades and another 2 rifle divisions. This engagement lasted all night, with the 29th Motorised Division finally forced to back up as further elements of the 13th Mechanized Corps arrived in the area, and the German command, becoming more and more concerned about the Sixth Army's entire southern flank, decided to pull back and redeploy the division along with the other defending forces southwest of Stalingrad. As a result, the meagre forces of the 7th Romanian Corps were now the only theoretical defence left in the 100-kilometre wide region between the town of Aksai and the Don River.
It was not long before the telephone rang again. "Come quickly to the Chief of Staff. General Paulus is already here." Colonel Adam hurried back to the command section. The wind was cutting in his face. Snowflakes settled on the field grey uniform, inadequate for winter. In Schmidt's room the temperature was more pleasant. The Commander-in-Chief was standing with the Chief of Staff, IA and IC, before the map on the wall. The depiction of the latest situation had begun. Adam stared bewitched at the entries. In 4th Panzer Army's area was a thick red arrow going through its forward positions. The Soviet Army had also attacked from a southerly direction. Paulus pulled it all together.
Early this morning, the enemy, after a strong artillery preparation, attacked the positions of 4th Panzer Army and the Romanian 4th Army. The situation there at this moment is not clear. The Red Army is pursuing its attack from the north. Its left-hand group is going in a southeasterly direction on Verkhnebuzhanovka. We must therefore reckon that the 11th Corps' route to the south will be blocked within a few hours. The greatest danger lies here, with the railway line from Morozovsk to Shir Station.
The Soviet High Command was pressing both fangs together. For 6th Army, the situation was becoming extremely precarious. It tried to prevent this with a counterattack by the 14th Corps and the 48th Panzer Corps. But what if this failed? What if their armoured forces proved too weak? Then 6th Army would be caught in a cauldron. The Germans experienced hours of unrest and uncertainty. Rumours of all kinds were circulating. No one knew where they came from. No one knew what was really happening. Had the enemy really cut off the Don High Road to Chir Station? Was it correct that he had reached the railway line from Morozovsk to the Don, and that the 4th Panzer Army had been defeated?
What measures had the Army High Command initiated to fight to free up the Sixth Army's rear?
Had the 48th Panzer Corps attacked yet? With what results? Nerves were at breaking point. At last, on the evening of the 20th of November, 6th Army's command had some information about the situation with its right-hand neighbour, the 4th Panzer Army. The Soviets had broken through its defensive line from the south and were thrusting westward toward the Don. The counterattack by the weakened 48th Panzer Corps had been easily checked. The Luftwaffe, which perhaps could have relieved the situation, had been rendered inoperable by snowfalls. How could the situation be handled? Paulus requested permission from the Army High Command to abandon Stalingrad and break through to the southwest with the army and so avoid the threatened encirclement. Army Group B supported this request at the Führer headquarters. In waiting for the reply, the minutes seemed like hours. Meanwhile, the Red Army progressed. Some of the German rear service units had fled in wild panic to the east as the tanks with the 5-pointed stars approached. The commanders of the 6th Army and Army Group B waited obediently for the Supreme Commander's decision. This finally arrived that evening. The breakout was refused. Paulus, Schmidt, and all the high-ranking officers who knew the catastrophic situation the 6th Army was in were bitterly disappointed. But all obeyed.
As you will know, we're running this series in parallel with Tick's series on Battlestorm Stalingrad. Since it is such an excellent series, it was hard to find any points we might disagree on. Only one small point could be found so far, and that deals with the 4th Romanian Army, which was not fully formed when the Soviet offensive began. Was this really the case? Let's explain. As Tick rightly pointed out, the 4th Romanian Army didn't have a proper headquarters at the beginning of Operation Uranus. It was to form the following day. Okay, that's a fact. But this doesn't mean that the 4th Romanian Army didn't exist. It didn't for the Romanian command, yes, but it did for the German command, since General Hoth took over. And as his own 4th Panzer Army was cut off and its units subordinated to Paulus, Hoth ended up with only Romanian troops remaining outside the cauldron. So, from his point of view, there was a 4th Romanian Army. Proof of this is that everyone in the German command was constantly referring to this army. So there was indeed a 4th Romanian Army, even though it didn't have a Romanian commander. However, we must take this opportunity to say that Tick has already produced the ultimate documentary on Stalingrad, with an incredibly detailed series that extends over several years of hard work. There is no doubt it will become a long-time reference.